groups C and D both must focus on the definition of the word complement. Now, the word complement with two E's instead of an I and an E means something that you might not understand at first. I heard Brian asking exactly what the definition of complement is, Tony giving a definition that's close to it, but would somebody like to advance the definition of complement?
They just like,
Sam.
they like work well together.
Why do they work well together?
Because they help like each other that has something the other doesn't have.
Correct. Sam's pointing out that one boy's strength is another boy's weakness, and that other boy's strength is the other boy's weakness. So they kind of fill each other in. They help each other where the other is weak. So if we're looking at Ralph and Jack, we've got to think of Ralph's strengths and weaknesses and Jack's strengths and weaknesses. You're writing a paper that's one page. If you have one strength for Ralph and a complementary weakness for Jack, and one weakness for Ralph and a complementary strength for Jack, with supporting details for each one of those four, that's plenty for your entire paper. So you don't have any problem there. Strength. Weakness. And then weakness and strength. Thank you. It's the first time I've seen that confused look on your face, Claire. Wait, what's that? I don't get it. Backwards. All right. So what is Ralph's strength that complements Jack's weakness? Brian.
Ralph, like, always thinks things through and plans it out, and Jack is, like, really impulsive.
Oh, good. So Ralph is a long-term planner, whereas Jack is too impulsive. Brian, can you give me a supporting detail which really exemplifies this difference between the two boys, where Jack is just thinking about the moment, whereas Ralph is focusing on long-term planning?
Well, during the fight, Ralph wanted to have him keep the fire so they could get rescued, and all Jack wanted to do was, like, kill a pig.
Very
Instead
good.
of watching the fire and, like, eating it, the fire, he went down the pig and the fire went out and they missed rescue.
Very good. Thank you, Brian. I hope that all of you are getting the sense of how I teach this class and teach writing. Writing is very little more than thinking, and every time I ask you a question in this regard, I'm developing information that you should include in your paper. So, if Brian makes a statement like, Ralph is strong in that he plans long term. Ralph considers not necessarily what is happening right now, but what might happen tomorrow or the day after. Jack, on the other hand, is impulsive. Golding demonstrates this difference when Jack lets the fire go out. And then a sentence or two summary on that, and you've got your statement of difference and your supporting detail, all in that one plot event. Joey.
This might be random, but exactly how long were they on the island?
You know what? I've heard that question several times. I don't know how long the boys were on the island. It's not very clear. Long enough for their hair to grow distinctly. I'm saying they're there anywhere from a couple weeks to a couple months. But I've not really poured myself into the detail long enough to get a distinct sense of that. Okay.
Does this have anything to do with, like, when Ralph is trying to run away from them, he thinks about it and says, I'm going to hide close to them so they don't, like, think I'm going to hide right next to their...
But how would his long-term planning qualities affect that at all?
He long-term plans that they're not going to check
Right next to them? Okay, so he's a little bit more, he's a little bit better at strategy, whereas Jack is better at blunt force. Yeah, that's possibly true. Abby, quick?
Oh, I just have a really quick question.
Go ahead.
When he was hiding near the camp, what happened to his old camp, the little ones at his camp? Did they just leave them?
Most of the little ones have, at that point, gone over to Jack's side. They drift off gradually, one at a time, not really en masse in a big we protest, we're leaving kind of movement. So it's very difficult to get a sense of which ones are there and which ones have left. But by the time they go to retrieve the glasses, most of those boys have gone somewhere because his tribe is totally fragmented. Strength, weakness. What is Ralph's weakness that is Jack's strength? Go ahead, Brian. Doing such a wonderful job.
What I put down is that Ralph can't really do anything on his own. Like, he more or less just plans it out and Jack, like, he has much work. And if he wants to do something, he just goes out as well.
I would add something to what Brian has said, which sort of develops on it. Ralph's order is not as strong. His ability to keep people structured and organized is not as strong. Whereas Jack seems to have a very good sense of how to keep boys in line. What's his primary method? Beating them, keeping them afraid. Now, perhaps with Jack's instinct to order and Ralph's instinct to long-term plan, the two of them could have worked together to complete a type of order in government and tribal structure that would have worked long-term and been effective. But of course, these two boys are divided, and that's why they can never complement each other for an effective government. Yes?
So isn't that like a democracy and then dictatorship?
Correct.
In there, the dictatorship.
Very much so. Absolutely, Kevin. If you look at a fascist dictatorship, quite often there are much lower crime levels than in a pluralistic democracy. And there's a very good reason for that. And there are trade-offs. So what do you sacrifice for a fascist dictatorship? Civil liberties, freedoms. What do you gain? Security, stability. Absolutely. And that's what Jack is giving to those boys. So good. It's a meditation on that as well.